Welcome to today's Explainer. We've got a truly fascinating case study of grassroots entrepreneurship for you today. We're diving into the story of Madhav. He was a rural vegetable seller in the beautiful village of Sonapur. And get this, Madhav went from desperately pushing a heavy cart of unsold cabbage under the blazing sun to building a massive, famous local business. We're going to break down exactly how he pulled this off, using the exact same business principles you'd learn in a fancy MBA program, but completely apply to a rural village setting.
So let's just dive right in by asking the ultimate business question, right? What do you actually do when literally nobody wants to buy your product? Because that was Madhav's core problem. He was completely stuck. He had a cart packed full of fresh cabbage straight from his field, but zero market demand. His potential customers were just totally fatigued by the exact same old vegetable day after day. Actually, one of his regular village customers, Kaki, hit the nail on the head. She told him, even if you give it for free, no one will eat it. Everyone is sick of cabbage. Wow. That perfectly illustrates total market stagnation. Madhav was staring at a complete rejection of his product. And the stakes were high. If he didn't sell his inventory, he couldn't even afford the fuel to cook his own dinner that night. He needed a radical strategy change, and fast.
And that brings us to a really fundamental entrepreneurial concept, the pivot. A pivot is basically changing the form or delivery of a product when the current market completely rejects your original offering. Now, Madhav didn't exactly have the cash to just go grow a different crop, but he had a conversation with his friend Somu that sparked a total light bulb moment. Somu casually mentioned this city dish called momos. They're basically these little white steamed dumplings, usually stuffed with finely chopped cabbage. And right then, Madhav realized, wait a minute, I don't need to change my product, I just need to change its form.
And this brilliantly shows the sheer contrast of his pivot. Think about it. On one side, you have raw cabbage. It's seen as cheap, boring, and has zero demand in his village. But on the flip side, steamed momos. Suddenly, that exact same raw material is transformed into something innovative, fresh, and highly desirable. It's like magic. He took a totally stagnant commodity and flipped it into a high-value dish.
But here's the smart part. Madhav didn't just rush out and try to build a massive restaurant right away. Instead, he built a minimum viable product, or an MVP. He went straight into his own kitchen, took his best leftover cabbage, finally chopped it up, mixed it with some local spices, stuffed it into flour dough, and steamed it with absolutely zero oil. The smells coming from his kitchen were so good that they actually pulled in his first beta tester, his neighbor Karim Chacha. Karim validated the whole concept on the spot, confirming it smelled amazing and basically telling him to get it out to the market immediately.
So he takes it to the village square, and Madhav just completely nails his unique selling propositions, his USPs. On day one, he was offering something so different from the heavy, fried snacks the village was used to. His momos were 100% oil-free and steamed. They had this incredible melt-in-the-mouth texture, which, by the way, instantly won over an elderly man who couldn't really chew hard food anymore. Plus, he paired the whole thing with a signature spicy red chutney that just woke everyone's taste buds right up. He was instantly capturing all these different customer segments, from Banware, the local sweet maker, all the way to the village elders.
Talk about a success. By noon on his very first day, Madhav was completely sold out. But it was his neighbor Karim Chacha who gave him the ultimate mindset shift. He told Madhav, hard work never sinks. You gave identity to ordinary cabbage. Now think of becoming a big businessman. That is such powerful advice. Karim Chacha pushed Madhav to view this early win not just as some lucky fluke to survive the week, but as the rock-solid foundation for a real, scalable enterprise. So what happens next is absolutely crucial. Madhav hit a massive growth bottleneck. It's the classic scaling crisis. The word had spread like wildfire, and people were literally lining up in the mornings. But Madhav only had one tiny brass pot that could steam maybe 10 to 12 momos at a time. On top of that, his hands were completely giving out from manually chopping all that cabbage, kneading the dough, and shaping every single momo by himself. Demand was just vastly outstripping his operational capacity, and it was causing these really long customer wait times.
Let's look at exactly how he handled this hurdle because it's brilliant. Madhav took his early profits, traveled into a nearby town, and smartly invested in capital equipment. He upgraded from that tiny pot cooking a dozen momos to a towering 3-tier steel steamer that could crank out 50 momos all at once. And he swapped out the grueling manual chopping for mechanical vegetable chopper. The result? Total game changer. He completely eliminated those long delays, achieved near instant service, and totally cleared his operational bottleneck.
But notice something really important here. Madhav scaled up without losing the soul of his business. He didn't just work harder, he worked smarter.
He used automation strictly for the tedious prep work, the chopping, just to save time. But he deliberately kept using his own hands for the shaping, which maintained that artisanal, homemade touch his customers loved so much. And instead of letting his quality slip as his volume grew, he actually innovated. He introduced fresh farm mint into his signature chutney to elevate the flavor even more.
Section 1. Brand recognition and PR. Winning over the officials. Now, Madhav's absolute ultimate brand test came during a surprise visit from the village Patwari and some high-ranking Tehsil officials. Now, a lot of people would panic, but he saw this as a massive PR opportunity for brand validation. He sourced the absolute freshest cabbage from his field that very morning, and the officials' reaction was just incredible. One of them said, "Hygienic, pure, and no artificial spices." In a village setting, your cleanliness is incredible. Madhav basically proves that if you prioritize quality control, hygiene, and local sourcing, you can win over literally the toughest critics.
They were so impressed by his operation that the officials actually presented Madhav with a classic entrepreneurial dilemma: the crossroads. They offered to help him pack up and move his stall to the big city, promising him access to this massive, highly lucrative market. But on the other hand, Madhav could stay right there in a small village of Sonapur. They would limit his immediate market size, sure, but it would allow him to stay and continue building and serving his own local community.
Section 2. Success in the village. Madhav Ka Desi Zaika.
Well, Madhav made a really decisive choice. He rejected the lure of the big city. He realized that his true competitive advantage and really his purpose were deeply tied to his roots. So he took his savings, used the backing of the officials, and moved off his street cart to open a permanent brick-and-mortar shop right at the main village intersection. By staying, he naturally adopted what we call a social enterprise model. He didn't just build a shop, he decorated its walls with these beautiful themes celebrating local farm life. And even better, he used his growth to create local jobs, hiring and personally training 2 unemployed youths from the village. He realized the true success is bringing your whole community up with you.
And what was the business reward for all this authenticity? Absolute viral growth. His customers weren't just coming from Sonapur anymore. Word spread online, and it sparked this huge social media fame that started drawing in people from 10 neighboring villages. I mean, city folks were literally driving out to the village just to taste his momos. Because he absolutely never wavered on his quality, he was still out there picking fresh cabbage every single morning. His local village shop achieved the kind of massive regional scale that most city businesses can only dream of.
Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. Do you really need to go to the big city to find success, or is your own Momo recipe waiting right at home? Madhav's story is such a great reminder that true innovation doesn't require some fancy Silicon Valley office or a bustling city street. Sometimes all it takes is looking at the unsold cabbage in your own life and having the courage and creativity to change its form. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I challenge you to go out there and find your own cabbage pivot.